Actually, I'm going to pass this around. That was the most perfect song for today. I came in this morning and said, you have some uplifting songs for us? And he didn't say anything. And wow, the big reveal. Good morning, everybody. I've been excited to share a special journey that I've been planning for since before COVID. So do you remember January when there was like little inklings of there was something going on in China? I was reading this book, Rewilding by Micah Mortali. And it ended up motivating me to find out, well, who is this guy, Micah Mortali? Turns out he runs the School of Mindful Outdoor Leadership at the Kripalu Yoga Center in Massachusetts. Has anybody been there? What a magical place. I'd never been there before. It's set in the Berkshire Mountains, up on a hill of Yoken Ridge and with a big view of a lake, and it's just filled with people taking special programs, getting their yoga teacher training. And this, if I were a yoga teacher, this would count towards the 1,000-hour yoga teacher training. So I was very fortunate to be able to take almost 20 days and do his 2 programs back to back. And I wanted to share with you some of what I learned, because I think it ties in with what we just heard in the song, The Circle of Life, the meditation about new ways of being. And I'll just start with this. How many of you spend, do you think, 5 to 10 hours a day on some sort of a screen? TV, computer, laptop, phone? Yep, a lot of nods here. Well, pre-COVID, here were the statistics. The average Americans are now on screens pre-COVID. This is like around 2017, 2018, for 11 hours a day. Average Americans, 11 hours a day, according to a Nielsen study. And they spend 90% of their lives indoors. That sounds about right? According to a study by the Environmental Protection Agency. I was like, wow. And, I lead a virtual organization, so I'm on Zoom or email all day, every day, during the week. I definitely meet these statistics, no doubt about it. So I was in desperate need of rewilding. So this is what rewilding is and the benefits of it. Rewilding can help you take, this is from Micah Mortali's book, can help you take a deep breath, walk with your feet on the ground, and sit by a fire as you listen to the wind in the trees. It can help you settle back into a wisdom that is older than language and written history, something foundational to who you are. It can help us all remember what we are, where we belong, and how much we have to be grateful for on this precious planet, for the seasons still turn and birds still sing in the trees. Anyone can take a few minutes to breathe, to learn how we share this land, and to become a part of our forests and wild communities. We just need to slow down and open our senses to the wonder that is all around us. So this is what started me on my quest, and I signed up right away, and I couldn't go because COVID, and the first opportunity for another face-to-face is what I just came back on Wednesday from. So I'll just tell you a little story about what my experience was. We met, Kripalu looks like a giant dorm room, right? There's a dormitory, there's 4 floors, there's classrooms, there's big halls, there's all different kinds of sleeping quarters, a big cafeteria, a cafe, a shop. I mean, the place is gigantic. So we met in a room, and there was a bunch of yoga blocks that looked like bricks, and there were electric candles in the middle, and there were orange scarves on top of that, so we had like a makeshift indoor fire that we all sat around. And they handed us some hemlock branches, so I just handed you some things that were from the, offered up this morning from our brothers and sister trees in the forest. Be careful of the sap, some of that's sappy, right? And then they told us a story that I'll share with you. So there was once a lioness. How perfect to go with Sandy's song. Really, we didn't coordinate. There was once a lioness, and she was rescued from her wild habitat. She was rescued from the jungle. And she was placed in a high-rise luxury apartment with everything you could possibly want, with a great view of the wild jungle, a comfortable bed, temperature control, food delivered by Grubhub, anything she wanted, a Netflix channel or two just for her of all the wildlife and all the views and all the panoramas that were from her natural habitat, everything that she could want. And after a few years of living like this, how do you think the lioness was doing? Maybe she had diabetes, right? Or heart disease, right? Yeah, right, joint pain. Maybe she was, a little out of shape, right, from being a couch potato. She no longer even wanted to go outside. She just had no motivation to. Oh, too cold. Nah, it's rainy. There's bugs out there. I'll have to do something. I might have to run up a tree. I might have to chase. No, I don't. I'm much more comfortable here. So she didn't want to go outside. And with that story, that was the last time that we were inside that classroom for 20 days. We were outside all day, sometimes from 6:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, except for meals and sleeping. And all of us realized we were all sleeping with our windows open, and it was so hot in there, like we were used to being out. It was about a month and a half earlier than here, so the temperatures ranged from late, high 30s to maybe 70 degrees at the highest. Mostly it was cold. I was wearing my long underwear, right? But we had a fire to gather around. We had a base camp up on the ridge on the campus of Kripalu that backs up to this mountain range. We were like right on the edge of that, in the middle of this natural wild area, and that's where we stayed. One of the things that I really enjoyed that I wanted to share about was we met with the doctor of Kripalu, Dr. Lisa, and she shared with us some of the things, like why it feels so good to be in the woods. Did you ever wonder, why does it feel so good to garden? It feels a lot better to garden and to be outside in the forest or wherever, the prairie, than you'd imagine. It's not more than just physical activity, although that's a part of it. So here are some of the things that we learned. Plants and trees naturally give off aerosols that contain terpenes that are demonstrating, this is from NIH, National Institute of Health, anti-inflammatory, anti-tumor, and neuroprotective properties. So those of you that have a little pine branch, that's one of the sources of that good stuff. So as you're walking around, these trees naturally give it off from their bark, from their crowns. Plants give things off. Trees also give off phytoncides, which are essentially essential oils. And when you breathe those in, these aerosols in, they go right into our bloodstream. How cool is that? Why is that? And then soil itself contains bacteria and spores that have antidepressant properties and boost our immune system. These are just a few of the things, and if you look up the research on forest therapy, you'll see a lot more of physical, mental, and emotional benefits of being outside. Well, so why is this? So I learned that what I have here, what you have, we have Stone Age bodies. All right? We're living in the modern world. We've got Stone Age bodies, and we evolved with the plants, with the animals, with the insects, with the air. Our senses are actually specially tuned for being outside. So rewilding for my 20 days was about noticing things, noticing what's moving, noticing little tiny things, noticing the big movements, the cycles of the sun, the cycles of the moon, the history and the geology of the land. And it's all about noticing. And every time we took a mindful outdoor walk and then shared it, the question was always, what did you notice? What did you notice? And I found by the end of my 20 days, spring had finally come to the Berkshires, and the forest, we were like on a hemlock hill with pines and a mix of hardwoods and a really thick pine floor like we have out here by the train tracks. Everything, I couldn't walk anywhere except on the path unless I was barefoot because there were so many little things popping up everywhere. including little red Fs, little baby salamanders that are red with the black spots on their side. They were coming out. They're only like this big. And they were tiny and little. So if you didn't look, you don't know what you're stepping on. Baby trees, moss that's flowering, seeds that are popping up. I mean, there's just so much. Not to mention all the things happening in the canopy and in the mid-layer of the forest. So we learned about the geology of the Berkshire Mountains and the ice that formed, the glaciers. We didn't have those here, but the glaciers that formed the beautiful lake and the mountain that we were on. The human history of the place. We met Sean Stevens, a member of the Mohicanuk people. We would call them the Mohicans. And the history of the people and how they were removed to Wisconsin. He spent a whole day with us showing us how to make a bow drill for friction fire to make fire. Then I have the bow drill kit, but I have not yet made the flame. But I did make start a fire with a little nest and everything with flint and steel. There's something empowering about getting to know fire in the elements, right? And we made bowls by taking coals from our fire and taking a whole morning and just carving out the bowl with the heat of the coals. That was very meditative, like fire meditation. All kinds of things that we did. We learned about foraging and cooking with plants. We made tea from pine needles, hemlock needles, and birch. We were trained in the 5 Ps from a teacher from Massachusetts Audubon. Poop, pee, prints, patterns, and place, the 5 Ps. And then after that, we could walk around and see, oh, that's coyote scat. Oh, yeah, that's rabbit. Oh, yeah, that's deer. Oh, my God, look at that. It's an owl pellet. I mean, I would have just walked by this stuff in the past. But one of the coolest and the coolest things, at least my nephews thought so, was bear poop, bear scat. And especially when it was only about 50 feet from our base camp. So there was, and we did see a couple times, a young male black bear that we called Makwa. He was like our mascot. Makwa is the Mohicanuk people's language for bear. We also had a resident porcupine. In between the orchard and the forest base camp is, the edge of all the little brush, and there was a mommy porcupine in there. We didn't see the babies, but we were hiking somewhere else. We saw a porcupine climbing up a tree and sleeping up there while we were watching I would say flocks, not herds, flocks of blue jays migrating while we were lunching, on our way to lunching by a beaver den, like a live active beaver den. You could smell the beavers, you could see all of their work, downed trees and all the little wood chips. I've never seen so much beaver action. You can actually smell their kind of like a musky smell. We had a picnic there, we had lunch there. It was so cool. So anyway, at the end of these 20 days, I feel more connected to I guess I would put it this way, my divine self, like that we talk about here, that we experienced this morning in meditation. Imagine that when you're in this room looking outside, especially when you're outside in a natural environment. Imagine that divine consciousness not just being you, but being in every living thing around you. It's like an extension of our divine consciousness. And once you kind of get in the zone a little bit, you realize our Stone Age bodies are meant to be there. Like they're an extension of us. We learn. How many of you have had some sort of enlightening or mystical or insightful experience anywhere in nature outside? A lot of people. So it's not just those phytoncides and things that are going into your bloodstream, those aerosols. There is something deeply connected as we co-evolved. But also, everything that's living around us is an expression of the divine as well. So is it any wonder that there's a kind of a symbiosis here? But being inside 90% and being on our screens at least 11 hours a day kind of disconnects us from that. And I find myself just like, I got to make a concerted effort to be outside more and to plan meetings so that I'm not always on Zoom, like be on a phone call while I'm walking. But it's kind of a battle, right? So I'm in a transition period. I've only been back since Wednesday. I'm working on that. Happy to share some tips about what can help you stay connected. But I want to just take just 5 minutes and give you a little experience, a mini mindful indoor-outdoor experience. So you can stay seated or you can stand up, but I'd like you to join me, and I'll actually walk you through what it's like. And I will put on my mindful outdoor guide hat. So I would say, welcome to the Unity Center of Peace at the trailhead of the Carolina Forest, and the home of beautiful sacred spaces that were created by some of the people in this very room, like Gain Steer, for example. So join me and let's warm up. Before we experience the outdoors from in here, let's warm up a little bit. And you can do it seated. Take a deep breath and start moving your ankles, and you move your knees if you can, and kind of shimmy in your seat to get your hips going. And now let's shake our hands, shake them down, shake them to the front, go up, and then go down again. And then just pause and feel that energy circulating. Feel the blood moving in your body. Feel the tingling perhaps in your fingers, maybe even your toes. And take a deep breath in. Let's just do 3 breaths together. You might want to put your hand on your body somewhere. You might want to put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. And just breathe in. And see if you can slow your breathing down so that your exhale is a little bit longer than your inhale at your own pace. And that calms our nervous systems down so we're in a more receptive mode. You might be able to smell the pine that you're holding, or the leaf, or the bark. And while you're in this centered place, think of something you're thankful for today. What feels like a gift today? And with your next inhale and exhale, just feel the gratitude for that gift flow out of you in all directions. And in this still, centered, aware, gratitude-filled mode, I'd like you to take the nature object that was passed around and open your eyes and take a look at it, explore it. Let's use all of our senses. Use your hands to really feel the texture. Smell the fragrance. Maybe you'll get some of those terpenes, phytoncides. What's it smell like? What's it feel like? You could taste it if you want, but no, you don't. That's not required. And just take it in. And while you take it in, let's do a little guided nature meditation. Bring your attention to your nature object that was provided by our brother and sister plants and trees out in the sacred spaces. And simply perceive it. Don't think about it, don't analyze it, don't label it, don't try to figure out what kind of plant it is. Just perceive it, bring your attention to it. Hold it gently in your awareness. Nature is a pathway to free ourselves from our mind's preoccupation with ourselves, helping us to transcend the trap of only paying attention to the limited self. Nature helps us connect to our essence, who we are on a deeper level, which goes far beyond the thinking mind. And to close this little introduction, I invite you to take a deep breath in and out. So you can imagine after 20 days of experiences like this, all day, every day, the great I am consciousness in me, right? My divine consciousness. I really feel that strong connection now with all living things as a co-joined expression in the divine, and this sort of evolving co-relationship that I'm just beginning to deepen and explore further. But we are one when we're outside our lion and lionesses enclosures. So to me, this is rewilding our divine self. So thank you for your time and attention, and so it is. Mm-hmm.